A very good morning to you. This is Off the Shelf. I am David Batsoffen, and he's not got his running shoes on this morning, but Tom Cottrell is joining me via this Zoom link to chat about his new book, Millwood. Tom, good morning. Welcome to you.
Morning, David, and thank you for having me.
It's only a pleasure. The first thing I want to know is I love hyenas. Why is there a hyena on the cover of your book?
Well, it represents some sort of spiritual curse.
Right.
I needed to come up with a an idea of a curse. The book is about generational curses, about alcoholism, about my own alcoholism, and I thought it would be a good motif um, for representing what really turns out to be at the end. I'm not giving away a lot
No,
here.
don't do spoiler alerts. That's for me to do.
Oh, okay. But it's a symbol really of family curses that travel through generations
Yeah.
in, well, I guess in every family, and in mine, it is alcoholism.
Okay. Now, I have to say that I suppose the journey and the curses started when I got your book, because you very kindly dropped it through my letterbox in the
I
pouring rain.
remember that well.
And it was still poor. I thought, oh, well, if you've stuck it through the letterbox, you've at least put it in plastic. But no, the book was lying in the rain. I had to put it in a book press for 3 days to separate the pages. But I have to tell you, Tom, that once I started this, I could not put it down. It
Yeah.
gallops. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about the book. It gallops along at a pace that is unbelievable. Whether you want to or not, you get sucked into this. Yes, you talk about your alcoholism and all of that. There's a subtext to the book. But the premise of the book is something I think we're all terrified of. And that's getting involved with the police for something that you didn't do and they won't believe you. Which is the underlying story here. Because Millwood, let's start with the name. Millwood is a family name, is it not?
It is.
Okay.
It is a family name. My great grandfather discovered gold in Neisner in the Millwood forests. I suppose why I have to work is because he there wasn't a lot of gold, and in the end,
Darn.
the family fortunes were dissipated.
Right.
But the memory lingered. So Millwood became the middle name of a lot of the male family members. My grandfather's name was Cedric Millwood Osborne. Of course,
Okay.
I'm Thomas Millwood Cottrell. And my cousin was Kevin Millwood Osborne. So it became a family name.
How do you start? This is your second novel. People may know you as a former ultra distance runner and also the runner's guide and that type of thing. Because I see some of your medals are on the wall behind you. I take it those are yours.
Those are my wife's. That's 22 comrades medals. I claim no, I can claim no glory to that.
All right. Well, the Kay has run, your daughter has run, the entire
Yes,
family has run. But this is your second novel. How do you, and this
yes.
I think is more personal than your first because it delves in, as you said, the alcoholism. How do you start that process? Because it can't be easy to be putting a book like this out there. Yes, there is another story, and we'll get to that. But you're laying yourself bare to people who may not have known this about you.
Yeah, well, David, I had no real intentions of writing this book as a
Right.
book in the first place. What was happening at the time, and this was back in 2013, is that my cousin was murdered.
Mm.
His body was left undiscovered in a house in Parkwood, if you will, just around the corner here, for a month. And it was a quite a gedunte before they got hold of me. And it didn't take long before a hop, skip, and a jump. And the police had laid it at my door and said, well, yeah, you actually are the only suspect in this case. And I must tell you, I began to unravel.
Mm.
I started to drink heavily, and it was a really scary time in my life. So the only way that I could find some sort of comfort was by taking those feelings that I had, the frustration and the fear, and writing it on a piece of paper. And that's really how Millwood began. In fact, the beginning, the book initially, if I had an idea of a book, it wasn't called that. It was called The Dark Shadow on the Floor. And that
Okay.
was because, well, David, I got a hell of a script because when the police allowed me into the house,
Mm.
now you could imagine it's one of those Parkwood houses with Oregon pine floors, and the body had been left there for a month. So all of I know this is gruesome, but here we go.
Yeah.
All of the bodily juices had leaked out into the Oregon pine and stained it. And there was this stain that I guess is still there to this day, of it in the shape of a body. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, this looks like there. If ever I started a book and I wrote and I put all these notes together, I'm going to call it The Dark Shadow on the Floor.
But what
But
is it? Sorry, Tom.
but eventually I thought, no, it's a stupid name. So somewhere along the line, Millwood became the book.
So let's go back to this police. You are the only suspect. You know you didn't
Yeah.
do it. They believe you did. And I think this is where people's biggest fear comes in when you're dealing with people in uniform. That you know that you could that you really didn't do it, and they're equally ready to just lock you away because they're not looking further than the tips of their noses for suspects.
Well, I suppose in some ways, if I try and rationalize it, I
Mm.
can more or less understand it. Because if you think about this, there was no forced entry. So the house was wide open and it was unlocked, and there was nothing stolen. Yes, the house was turned upside down, but
Mm.
I mean, things like TVs, a wallet were still left there in the house. So nothing was stolen, no forced entry. So the police, rightly, I suppose, came to the conclusion there that that the guy who killed Kevin must have known him, must have
Right.
been known to my cousin. So I think logically that's it. So what they did is they started scraping around into his background.
Mm.
Oh, and surprise, surprise, Kevin was a loner. He was really a recluse. He lived a real reclusive life. I hadn't seen him for years, and that is why it took the police such a long time to find me.
Ah, okay.
Um, and when they went through his contacts, there's only one phone number in the contacts.
It was
Me.
you.
And no, there was another phone number as well, a guy,
Mm.
Jolyon. So there were the two of us. But they looked at it, and I guess if you've read enough crime novels, and I'm suppose the police investigators had read some crime novels, and they thought, it's always the close family that does
Yeah,
it, and I was his only living blood relative, so there it was at my doorstep. So I suppose I can understand it. I can
yeah.
rationalize that.
How long ago did this murder take place?
So that happened in 2013.
Okay.
And it took then me a while to settle down, start some drinking, and put stuff to paper. And that's really so. I really started writing that book round about 2014, 2015.
How long? Because you're talking to me from what is
Uh,
obviously your study and you're not in jail, which means the police didn't arrest you. How long did it take before you sort of shook hands and went, listen, I do
oh,
understand, but we're sorry that we put you through this.
it went on, I guess, on and off because it
Mm.
wasn't a continual process. I thought my life was back to normal and I'd get the phone call. We need to see you. We have a few questions. Can you see us? And so that went, but it went on for about 2 years
Right.
before we could actually shake hands and say, look, you got to leave me alone here.
Mm. And did it end up with you having to do some sort of polygraph to prove that you weren't
I
um,
did. And
guilty?
and that really was how, I mean, at some point, I'd said to the police, "You have to leave me alone.
Mm.
I live in fear. I can't sleep at night. I know it wasn't me, but you can't. You have no proof. So
Yeah.
there has to be some way that we can get rid of this and we can shake hands." And they said, "Okay, well, it won't hold up in court, but would you be prepared to take a polygraph?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." David, what I didn't realize at the time is just what a scary ordeal that can be.
Really? Because the TV always makes it look so simple. They sit in a chair, they
Oh,
attach wires, and then some
God,
of them start
no.
sweating, and the cops always go, "Ah, you're sweating, you're guilty." And that's not what it's all about.
No, there was quite a process to this. And in part of this process, they said, look, we're going to ask you 10 questions.
Right.
And they even said, look, when you go and get this polygraph, there's no trick questions. We're going to
Mm.
give you what the 10 questions are.
Right.
So by the time I even arrived, I knew what they were going to ask me. And of course, they say, look, we know you're nervous. I mean, that was an understatement.
It's a given, I suppose.
And they said, but we
Terrified is
need,
more apt.
yeah, because I thought if I fail this,
Mm.
maybe I'll end up in, I don't know what, maybe
Yeah.
I'll be accused of murder and there's a whole trial. Who knew at that stage? But they said, we need to get a baseline. So I knew what the 10 questions were. And they said,
Mm.
now we're going to ask it. We're going to ask you these questions 3 times, just so we can get an idea of where you're at with this. So we
Mm.
went through the questions the first time. I'm hooked up to this thing, and that is just like the movies. And so they ask the questions, and the graphs go along, and you look there and think, oh God. They asked it again, and they said, okay, this is for real now. And
Mm.
it's when and eventually, giving it away in the book as well, the poly came back. Depends which way you look at it. Positive for me, negative for
Good for
them.
them.
And they said, okay, that's it. Thank you. We are closing this case. And
Now,
that
so
was
to
it.
date, and again, not giving anything away, I suppose, the murderer has never been caught. So somebody out there may pick up this book, and then you might get a phone call going, hang on a second,
Oh,
you've written my story. I want royalties off this now.
God. Well, I hope it doesn't happen. That's all I can say. But yes, somebody got away with this.
Yeah,
But David, if you look through the statistics, and this is heartfelt, is that perhaps only 20% of cases in South Africa get solved, murder
right.
cases. So this is just a statistic.
Mm,
And it's a tragedy, it's a statistic, but that's what it is. And I know that there are other families that have loved ones that have been murdered that
mm,
are also looking for those answers. And partly when I finished that book, I thought, yeah, I'm doing it for everybody.
right.
The 80%ers that still think about
Mm,
there's somebody out there.
yeah. How did you then weave that story and the alcoholism into Millwood?
A book, I think a book you don't think of writing a book from chapter one. And certainly Millwood was a book that grew on me, and
Mm.
it grew as my alcoholism grew. And I didn't think of it in the, you better repeat that question, because it was organic.
No,
This
that
book,
that was the question is how did the alcoholism and the underlying and the story of the
ah,
murder tie themselves together.
when eventually I had it tied down that I wanted to write about my alcoholism and also how I got sober,
Mm.
I didn't want to write a book about a how-to.
Yeah,
That you open it up and these are the 5 steps, or the like the AA would have it, the 12 steps on how
yeah.
to get sober. I thought I wanted to be entertaining.
Mm.
I wanted to write a story. By that stage, it became more than just a diary of my feelings. I thought I want to entertain readers.
And
That's what I
entertain you
want to do.
certainly did. Well, in my case, as I said,
So I thought,
I couldn't put the thing down.
no, I'm glad. I wanted to weave a
Yeah.
story into this so that it wasn't a how-to book on how you get sober, but rather that it tells a rather intriguing story all
Mm.
on its own, and that I wanted to be entertaining more than anything else. By the time I got my teeth into it, that's what I wanted to do at the end.
So for the looky-loos that read this book, the house is still there. They can drive
Yes, it
past
is.
it and take pictures.
Ye-
Maybe even go knock on the
Yes.
door and say, "Please, can we see the stain on the floor?" If it's still there.
I'm not going to give away oh no,
No,
but
don't.
it's in the book.
It's
Then
true enough. But then they've got to read the entire book to find the
they've got to
address.
read the entire book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not on the large, it's not on the last page, people. So don't just turn
No.
there. What is your writing process, Tom? Did you sit down every morning and go, right, skip for me a dop, and then we'll start writing? Or had the drinking subsided somewhat when you started writing?
By the time I really got my teeth into the book,
Mm,
I was disciplined about it, and that was really I was lucky because writing the runner's guide was exactly like that. It was another day at work. I
mm,
would get up, I would make sure that I was in the office by 8 o'clock and that I was writing, and I put in a full day's work. And to a greater or lesser extent, I did exactly that with Millwood. It was a working day. I got up and I wrote. And some days when I stood back and I thought, there are 2,000 words on this page, and I read it and I thought, oh God, it's terrible. But still, it was 2,000 words that I could criticize
yes,
or that I
because
could
that,
change. It was better than a blank page. But and I'm going to give away your next question. It took me 10 years to finish that book. I wrote it over a period of almost a decade.
mm,
And so there were times when I put it down and thought, I can't bear it any longer. And I forgot about it, and other life happened.
right.
But eventually, and that's going through 2 editors, going through several revisions, looking at it, throwing it in the cupboard, pulling it out, and rewriting it again. I eventually thought, I have to put this thing away. It was
Mm.
beginning to be, in fact, it was becoming an obsession. And I thought, now I have to publish it so I can obsess about it no more.
Now, you talk about two editors, let alone one.
Yes.
How did you feel as an author when you give them your baby, in other words, pages to read, and then they come back and the things are full of red lines and question marks, and there's one word on a page that they go, great word, use it more often, or that type of thing. But surely
Yeah.
it must hurt in the innermost core of your being, going, these are my words, people. I want them
Well,
to
in
read like
not,
this.
I must say, not really. I
Ah,
have to, if I make any admission up front, I trained as an accountant and and I did a degree in law. So I am by no stretch of the imagination a writer.
right.
So when I hand a manuscript over to an editor, I feel that I'm handing it over to somebody who's far knowledgeable and more skilled than me. And I've always believed that you get cleverer people than yourself to finish your work anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel uncomfortable about handing my book over
Mm.
to an editor. But I have to tell you, the one editor came and said, "Look, your book, my first draft." She said, it's well written, it's nice. I do like it and I will edit it, but it's schizophrenic."
Right. He said,
And
funny
I
you
said,
should say
"Well,"
that.
and she said, "Well," and I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, on the one hand, this is some kind of alcoholic confessional, but
Mm.
on the other hand, it's a murder mystery. And it seems like it's two books. Which one is it?" And I paused and thought, "Well, which one is it?" And I thought, and she said, "Because you have to write just one."
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, let me have a crack at doing a murder mystery. So the first or second or third iteration of Millwood was simply a murder mystery. I wrote it in the third person.
Mm.
And in the end, I thought, and I was thinking, now what kind of murder mystery doesn't get solved? If I kept as
Yeah.
close to the truth as I
Mm.
could, but I thought you've got to end this with somebody getting caught.
Right.
So I struggled with the ending. It was third person. It became a murder mystery. And so I finished it. And then I thought, gee, and this editor said, "Yeah, good job. And it's a nice book and it really is intriguing." I
Mm.
sent it to my daughter who lives in the UK and said, "Well, what do you think?" And she came back and said, "Dad, what the hell's the matter with you? It's crap." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "Somewhere in halfway through this book, you get lost.
Mm.
This isn't you." And that was when I thought, I've got to pull this thing back because the thought process of this is that I wanted this book to be me.
Mm.
I wanted to write in granular detail about what I went through.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to stand on the outside as a third person looking in. So I think about the fourth or the fifth time, I rewrote it and I brought it back, maybe messy and schizophrenic. I tidied it up a lot, but yeah, but I always needed to find an ending, and I struggled with that because I hate books that just sort of ending that had the ending. Well, you know, I got sober and we don't know who killed Kevin. That's not a satisfying
The
ending.
end. Wait for
The
the
end.
sequel. I get drunk again
So
and we find the killer.
So I never realized how complex and difficult it would become to write an ending for this book. I think I achieved it in the end,
You
but
did.
I
You
had
did.
I had to turn to certain writers that are far more skilled than I and think about their endings. And I'll tell you now, the one that got me that I used as a model for the ending was Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man in the Sea.
Ah,
And I thought that man leaves you absolutely full of thoughts. There's an imagination there that is captured just
yeah.
by the ending of that book. And I thought, okay, I'm going to copy you, mister. So
Well, I'm
I
not going
looked
to
at
read
what
the last
Ernest,
paragraph, but I was just while
okay,
you were talking, I've just reread the last line and I've gone ice cold again because you get
yeah,
to that line in the book and people, please, we're going to talk to Tom about where it's available. Go out and don't go because I always go to look at acknowledgements when I get a book. That's my go-to. In your case, there's an author's note at the end, but it faces that last line. The pages are next to each other. So don't do it, people. Don't. You'll spoil the book for yourself. You really and truly will. Before we get on to where it's available and when and all of those sort of things, Tom, did the book eventually end itself? Did you come up with that line and you pushed the end and you went, that's it. I don't have to rewrite. I'm happy. And that's it. I don't care about anybody else.
David, yes, it's a book that really took over In fact, I feel that I was called to write this
Mm.
book. And in the end, even though it did take a long time and a lot of reading and hard work to finish it, I felt that it was the book. It
Yeah.
wrote itself in the end.
Now, you've self-published this because it
Yeah.
says on my copy, if people can read that, it says not for sale.
Yeah.
Although
Yes.
somehow in this particular condition, Tom, I don't think
No
that I
one would buy it.
get a second-hand bookstore to buy this book from me.
Yeah.
Um, is it available yet? And if so, how and where will it be?
Okay, let me give you the good news and then the bad news. The
Okay,
good news is it is available on Amazon
right.
only. And that was really because I thought, let me just see how it goes before
Mm,
I go and lay out some money to print the book.
right.
Well, I have to say it was very well received on Amazon, and I'm very pleased with that.
Great.
So it is available on your Kindle, and you can look here. I even got a printed copy of my own
But
from Amazon. So
it
you
also says not for sale, Tom.
not for sale, yeah, because you can order authors' copies a hell of a lot
Okay.
cheaper than the retail copies, but
Yeah.
it is available,
Right.
and you can get a hard copy book from Amazon. But because I've had so many people come to me and say, when are you going to put it into the bookstores? What are
Mm,
you going to do? So I will. I'm about to go and speak to my printers now, and I am going to put this book into the bookstores. I do have a very good distributor in tow.
right.
So I reckon within 2 months it will be available in exclusive books and in
Mm,
other bookstores as well. And what I'm going to do is that before I go there, I'm going to have a loud and proud book launch, probably one or two. I certainly one in Johannesburg. I might do one in Cape Town as well.
I think you should do one at the finish of Comrades. Stand at the finish line with the winner coming in behind you and go, read Millwood. Oh, Tom, thank you so very much for chatting with me this morning. It's been an absolute blast. And once again, and I'm not just raving about the book because I'm chatting to you. It was a ripping read. It really and truly was. And those who want to get it now, do so. If you're going to wait for Millwood, then wait. You won't be disappointed. Let me put it that way. And if you are, bring me your copy and I will refund you absolutely nothing. It's your problem and not mine. My guest on Off the Shelf this morning has been Tom Cottrell. The book is Millwood. It's self-published. It's available on Amazon. Tom, thank you so very much for joining me on Off the Shelf.
David, thank you for your time.
It's only a pleasure. Until the next time, from me, bye for now.